Hi guys, welcome to my house. I'm gonna try to keep this introduction kind of short, although this is one of the most important units that we're gonna cover all year. We're talking about ethics this week, and ethics just means how do I know if a thing is the right thing to do? How do I make sure I'm living rightly in the world? Now, as Christians, we're tempted to say we know the perfect ground for ethics. We know exactly how to know if something's right or not because Jesus said, love God with all your heart, and all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So if a thing to do is loving towards God or towards a neighbor, then it's the right thing to do. That's as simple as it gets. The problem comes in when you need any more specifics than that, when you need any more details than that. So I just wonder, have you ever come across a situation where you're trying to choose between one option or another and you can't tell which one is the more loving thing to do? And so you're wondering, goodness, which one is right? Which one is wrong? Is there a right answer? A lot of people in our generation today, like in culture around us, they actually have the opinion that there's no such thing as an actual right thing to do or wrong thing to do, that there's no universal or absolute truth when it comes to morality or ethics. Now, they will say that whatever you decide is right for you, and if somebody else decided something else, that would be right for them. And this is actually a philosophical theory that you'll hear a little bit about this week as you watch the videos that I have you watching. This comes from a place called relativism. So for Christians, though, which is kind of what my focus is, for Christians, we want to know if a thing that we're about to do is the right thing to do, and we want to know how we're supposed to be able to determine that. Because the easiest thing to say is, well, if God told me to do it, then it must be the right thing. And if God told me not to do it, it must be the wrong thing. And this is definitely true, but it's not helpful when you think about all of the things that go on in your life that aren't mentioned in the Bible, right? Because how am I supposed to get God's opinion on a particular topic if he hasn't spoken about that thing in Scripture, or if the thing that I'm wondering about is a relatively new development over the course of civilization? So to take a really weird, example, think about all of the things that you probably shouldn't look at on the internet, right? That's not in the Bible necessarily, because the internet's not in the Bible. So you think, well, did God really say? There's a fancy term in theology called adiaphora. And adiaphora means something was not spoken for or against in Scripture. So God didn't command it and he didn't forbid it. So it means that it's kind of up to you. Well, that's exactly the problem that we're having with ethics, is when something seems like it's up to us, because it seems like it wasn't commanded or forbidden in Scripture, how do we pick the right thing? How do we make the right decision? And again, can you think of any situations in your life? Like, the Bible doesn't tell you which college to go to, doesn't tell you which career you're supposed to have, it doesn't tell you if, the Bible doesn't tell you whether or not your behavior on a social media site is appropriate or not. It doesn't say it explicitly, right? Now, we can come up with generalizations based on things that Jesus did say, like we said before. Is what you're about to do loving? But what if you need help? What if you need details? What if you need advice because you're not sure if this way or that way is the best way, the good way, the right way? This week is all about this question, right? For those of us as Christians who are tempted to just try to make it as simple as possible and say, look, if God said it, forget it. If he said it, that's the right thing. That view is called the divine command theory. If God says to do a thing, then it's automatically right because he said it, because he told you to do it. And he's the one in charge. He's the ultimate ground of morality. The problem with this, as you'll find out in our videos that you're about to watch, the problem with this is, one, he hasn't said everything we want him to say. And two, if God says a thing and it becomes the right thing to do because God said it, then what if God changes his mind and says the opposite is true at some point in human history? Does that mean all of the people up until that point that were living the way God said, does that make all of their actions all automatically wrong because now the new rule is the opposite of what God said? And so for instance, like God says don't kill. Well, what if all of a sudden God says to a particular person, it's okay for you to kill? Does that mean he was wrong before? Does that mean all the people that lived that way before were wrong? It's a tricky place to be, to say that a thing becomes the right thing to do because God told us to do it. It's also a problem, though, that if that's not the case, if a thing is right and God simply agrees with the right thing to do, then God isn't actually the ground of reality and morality and ethics. Something else is. Think about it this way. If God is simply pointing to a system of right and wrong things, then isn't that thing outside of God? And then God's not the ground of reality, which Christians don't like either. So that's called a dilemma. When something has lose-lose, it's called a dilemma. And that's a real dilemma philosophically that comes up with the divine command theory. So a lot of Christians don't actually, once they think about it, they don't actually say that that's why something's right or wrong. They go a different direction. And there's a couple options that you can go. And what I want you to do this week is I want you to watch through the list of videos that I'm going to put up on Plus Portals. I want you to watch through them. And I just want you to take it in and see, do you agree with this at all? Is this where you find yourself gravitating towards when you try to answer the question, what's right and what's wrong? Could you line up with this ethical grounds for reality? And I want you to be as non-judgmental about yourself as possible, because I want you to just be honest. How do you actually determine if a thing is right or wrong? And there's a bunch of options. You'll watch like 6 or 8 videos or something like that. And it seems like a lot of work, but it's not actually a lot of work. It's just a lot of information. The only work that I want you to do, the only assignment that I have for you this week, is I want you to tell me, after watching all of this, what did you agree with? Were there parts of a certain theory that you liked? Were there parts that you didn't like? And you don't have to respond with your evaluation of every single option. You just have to tell me basically in a sentence what it said. And then at the very end, I want you to say, so which one was your favorite? Which one is the one that you think you actually live your life by? Does that make sense? I want you to know that you can always send me texts or emails or call me if you have questions about any of this. This is a really fun conversation. I'm also really interested this week, if any of you are willing, it's going to be voluntary. It's not mandatory, voluntary. But on Friday, we're going to have a Zoom that you can click into if you want to, and just talk about some of this, because this is one of the most fascinating conversations of the whole year. How do I know what's right and what's wrong? Is there even a right thing to do, or is there just the wisest thing that I can do in my situation? So we'll have a Zoom on Friday. More details will be emailed to you about that. I pray God's blessings over your week. I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with when you watch these videos. And hopefully I'll see you in one of those Zoom calls on Friday. God bless you.